Happy Saturday. Good morning. And today we're switching gears, the power of goal setting. So, how many of you have written down goals? Actually, written down specifically what you want with a timeline. You know, the old phrase is a goal is a dream with a deadline. And the difference between the people that achieve their outcomes and the people that don't, many times, is simply the people that achieve their outcomes direct their mind as to what they want. They get specific about what they want. We all have a provision in our brain called the reticular activating system, RAS. And simply it's this: we direct our minds as to what to focus on. If you read the original self-help achievement book, Think and Grow Rich, that talks about, Napoleon Hill talks about the definiteness of purpose, that people who are significantly successful have a very clear vision about what they want to do with their life. And people who are not significantly successful don't. They have ideas about what they want with their life, but they don't have a specific vision. Those that have a specific vision, not only do they inspire themselves, but they end up inspiring others. And most of the time, they will be the first to tell you that the people that they inspired are much smarter than they are and much more talented. But they didn't have their own vision, and so they became part of this person's vision in a good way. You know, when I say design your own life, don't become part of somebody else's design for theirs, I'm talking about commercials and advertisers and things like that. But part of the design of your life can be that you become part of something bigger that has a specific vision that you take part of. For me, obviously, the Tony Robbins community is a big part of my life, and that's a vision that I've taken part of. Our mission is to end suffering in the world. Big mission, but we also have a large, powerful group of people that do a lot in order to achieve that outcome. So that's a big part of the mission that I've taken on as part of my life to go try and have that impact. So goal setting is really creating results in advance. That is what you're doing. That reticulator activating system, when you write down, and you got to write it down, there's a big difference between something that you actually manually write and something that you type. My cat wants to go outside, so the dog is telling me that the cat wants to go outside. When you write something down, you're utilizing a much larger portion of your brain than when you type it. All right, well, let's go. I guess it's time to put everybody outside. So we're going to go do that. Go ahead, Mooch. The greatest study of this that was ever done was at Harvard in 1953. They went to the graduating class of Harvard in 1953 and asked them, how many of you have written down specific goals? 3% of the class did. They then went back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years later to check in and see how they were doing. And what they found is that 3% of the class reported to being much happier, much more fulfilled with life, had a much different outcome in terms of their marriages. But all of that is something that can be adjusted. So then they looked at finances, and the 3% that had specific written down goals was worth more than the other 97% combined. That is when Harvard started implementing goal setting, written down goal setting in the 1970s into all of their curriculum. And obviously now it's taken over elsewhere. So this is really magical. And that's a strange term to use, especially coming from a lawyer, but it truly is, because you are creating results in advance. I have vision boards that I did 30 years ago, and I have one that's hanging in my closet that was the first one that I did when I was just getting out of law school. And I have journals that I kept back in college, and even when I was younger, somehow I always wrote down ideas of what I wanted. I got a lot better at it once I discovered self-help technologies, obviously, but I still have those journals. And it is amazing to go back and take a look at all of the things that I've now checked off my list at almost 56 years old that I once wrote down. Even if I wrote it down and I didn't actively think about it every day, my brain still knew that those were the outcomes that I was looking for and helped guide me towards that. You know, remember, most of what's going on around us, our brain is deleting. Most of the time it's blocking out, because if we took everything in, it would be too much. It would be overwhelming. So our brain blocks out a good portion of what goes on. Well, if you don't tell it what to focus on, then it does it on its own. But when you write down goals, you're telling it, focus on these outcomes. These are the things that I want to achieve, and your brain starts finding it. When the student is ready, the master will arrive. Have you ever had an experience where you really made a decision about, okay, I want to create this situation in my life, and then all of a sudden somebody popped into your life and it was like, wow, I decided I wanted this, and guess what? This person or this opportunity or this thing suddenly was there. Well, that's your brain paying attention to the things that you want it to pay attention to. The simplest example of that can also be something like you bought a coat or a purse or a car or a golf club or a boat or whatever. You purchased something, and then all of a sudden you noticed, oh my goodness, like everybody has one of these. Now, were all of those things around before you bought yours? Yes, it's just now that you bought yours, you're focusing on them and you're noticing them. So when you do goals, when you write them down, and remember, got to write them down, repetition is a mother's skill, that's why I keep saying it, you're creating results in advance. And it needs to be done in a basic format. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but there's a basic format that needs to be followed. But for today, I want you just to understand how powerful this truly is. That anybody that has achieved anything significant started out with a very clear vision about what they wanted. From Henry Ford to Thomas Edison to Walt Disney to Elon Musk, they were all very, very clear about what they wanted. And then they started working towards it. And they had no idea how they were going to get there when they started. None. They just knew it was something that they were committed to achieving an outcome. And as a result, before you know it, they were able to achieve that outcome. Walt is my favorite. I've studied Walt like crazy. I've read all the autobiographies on him. I've read almost everything there is to know about him. And the reason I love Walt so much is he reminds me of like Richard Branson. They're kind of very similar. John Paul Mitchell is also very similar. A lot of people who achieve a lot, are very well, they're almost like tyrants in a way. I mean, they're very driven and can be very attacking to the people that work for them. I mean, that's not uncommon for somebody that's very driven. I mean, let's face it, the world is shaped by unreasonable people, right? Jim Cramer on Mad Money, I watch him every morning on CNBC. They used to buy, and I think Jim is an amazing guy and has done amazing work in his life. They used to buy keyboards by the gross because when something happened that he didn't want, when they had an investment that didn't work out, he had those old school computers where you had the big monitors, not the thin ones like today, and he would grab the keyboard and smash it over the monitor. So they had to buy keyboards by the gross so that they could keep replacing them. It's not something that he's proud about now. But Walt Disney and Richard Branson and John Paul Mitchell, and especially Walt Disney, they achieved their outcomes without acting like that. Walt was always incredibly gracious with everybody that he was around, and everybody that worked for him. He empowered them in his vision, and he did so without being a tyrant. And that's a big part of what I appreciate with him. But I mean, when Walt had his visions, I mean, everybody said he was crazy. I mean, everybody said he was crazy. He had a distant relative, a second cousin that lived in my hometown that I got to know for a little while. And he talked about when he was a kid and they would go to family reunions, his parents would introduce him to Walt and say, that's your crazy Uncle Walt. He's nuts. And that was in the early 1950s before he'd started Disneyland. And he had some success at that point. But I mean, every time Walt went to do something, everybody told him it wasn't going to work. When he did Snow White, he said it was going to be, he was going to do an animated film that was going to be a true feature film. And he did a red carpet like everything that a regular feature film would do. And everybody said, you can't do that. Nobody's going to go to a full-length animated feature film. And he put all of his money where his mouth was. He took all of his life savings and put it on the line on that movie. And of course, it was a huge hit. Same thing was true with his theme parks. Everybody said that wasn't going to work. So everybody that has a significant vision, when they start out, a lot of people are going to say it's not going to work. In fact, that's kind of one of the things that motivates me is when the people close to me start telling me, you're not, that's not gonna work out. Then I'm like, okay, good. Then I know that I'm on the right track. So for today, goal setting is an integral part of your life. If you want to create outcomes, which, we're either growing or we're dying. If you want to be fulfilled, if you want to be happy, the key to that is progress, right? The key to living is giving. If you want to really experience what it's like to have joy, then give things to people. But the key to happiness is progress. That is really what makes us feel like we're in a good place. And so the way to do that is to be directed in terms of that progress. And the way to be directed is through goal setting. So there's nothing, I think, more significant in terms of lifelong fulfillment. You want to create your outcomes, you got to manage your state. But this is about what are the outcomes that you want to create. We all know we've spent a month talking about managing your state because it's worth it. It's that important. Now, okay, what are we going to manage our state to do? Well, it's to achieve these outcomes. So tomorrow at 9 o'clock Central Time, I will do a live goal setting workshop for anybody that wants to do it. Should take about 20 minutes to a half an hour, I would think, maybe even a little bit less. It'll be on Facebook Live just like this. I'll just be holding my phone, so I won't have a ton of music or anything that I can do that's super exciting. But if you haven't done a goal setting seminar in a long time, this is an opportunity to go ahead and do that because it's something that you should do every year. I participate in the Date with Destiny goal setting seminar every year. And every year I tweak some things a little bit, but I look at it every year and go through the process every year. That goal setting seminar done at Date with Destiny, I think is one of the best ones that's done. But tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, tune in here on Facebook Live if you want, and we'll do a live goal setting seminar. Obviously, I'll post the video too, so you can do it later. But take the time to create what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Life's going to happen one way or another, and you can either direct it or you cannot. Pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. You don't want to be that person that's in a boat with no oars and they're 10 feet from the waterfall and all of a sudden go, oh my goodness, I wish I would have, I wish I should have. You don't want to be that person that looks back and says, man, I wish I would have done the things and said the things to the people that I care about. I wish I would have been the parent or the spouse that I wanted to be. I wish I would have managed my finances. Finances is a big one for me because I see so many people that suffer with that live long, healthy lives where they had great employment their entire lives or great businesses their entire lives, but they just never disciplined themselves to tuck away a little bit of money. I mean, think about it. If you live to be 80 years old and you started working at age 18 or 22, if you just put away $10 a week, you'd have a pile of money, but they don't take the time to discipline that little amount. But if they had written down goals, they would, because they would know, okay, I have to take these steps. So if you don't do it tomorrow, that's perfectly fine, but pick a goal setting seminar. They're all over the place on the web. They're all over YouTube. Pick one and do it and write down specific goals that you look at every day and create those results in advance. Live the life that you've imagined. Live the life that is the directed life, the life that you intentionally want to create certain outcomes. So at the end of the day, when you're done, because none of us are getting out of this alive. I love the Marines. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You want to get to the end of that road, whenever it is, and be able to look back and say, I did everything I came here to do. What a blessing if you're able to say that to yourself. I did everything I came here to do, and I'm ready for whatever that next transition is. That's one of my goals, is to try to achieve that, and I work every day to try to get there. Am I successful every day? No, but I still get up every day and I work towards achieving it. Have a great day, everybody. Let's say hi. Valerie, great to see you. Nora, thank you so much for joining. Mr. Drehobel, not in the cold, down in Florida. Mary Kaufman. Terry Egan, great to see you. Didn't you celebrate a birthday recently? And Mary Schwanke, thank you so much for watching live, everybody. Have an awesome Saturday. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.